Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them. And we got a big, gigantic week of comics this week. And we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Universal Monsters Dracula, issue number 1. Now, this is a new book from Skybound Entertainment, part of Image Comics, written by James Tynion IV, with amazing, horrific, and beautiful artwork by Martin Simmons. This is absolutely a top-notch adaptation of the Universal Monsters Dracula film, starring Bela Lugosi, directed by Todd Browning, which of course we are covering for Horror Fest on Sunday night show at 8 p.m. Central Time, so be ready for that. But you know me, I'm a huge horror fan, I'm a huge Universal Monsters fan, and I'm a sucker for Dracula, no pun intended. That was kind of clever. I should have intended that. Anyway, Dracula was absolutely magnificent. So this isn't really an adaptation of the novel, it's an adaptation of the Universal Monsters movie, that classic 1931, 32, I think it's 31, maybe it's 32, that classic 30s Dracula starring Bela Lugosi, and wow, it is awesome. Now, it's not just a straight adaptation either. What it's doing is it's taking this story, this familiar movie, and it's actually doing some interesting things with it visually, which I'll show you in just a second, but also narratively. It's playing around with some of the characters. It's not changing anything, but it's adding more dimension. It's adding more depth and more layers to these characters and to the story. You're seeing more of the stuff and the discussions in between the scenes and stuff like that. And when Dracula shows up, it is absolutely mesmerizing and horrifically beautiful. This book is frickin' awesome. If you're a horror fan, if you're a Dracula fan, hell, if you're a fan of Tynion and Simmons' other work like Department of Truth, that's exactly what you're getting into. You're getting that kind of aesthetic, that kind of a tone and atmosphere that is absolutely riveting. And not only is Dracula supremely awesome in this book, that title page, look at that, right? But Renfield is shown in such a horrific and scary way. This book is filled with atmosphere, and what could easily just be a cheap adaptation, just kind of retreading dialogue, retreading the story points, it actually is elevated into something more special, something more pure, and something artistically a hell of a read. So the pick of the week, Universal Monsters Dracula, issue number 1. It's also got the cover of the week because Martin Simmons is playing with texture on this cover. He's using some real elements, at least it looks like he's using real lace here. He's using paint, mixed media, stuff like that. I think it's a striking cover. And I'm just such a sucker for Dracula, pun intended, that this makes the pick of the week, or should I say the bite of the week. All right, that was too much. That was too much. All right, let's move on. Also from Image this week, we got a new one from Tony S. Daniel. This is called Edenwood. This one wasn't really something I was into. It was kind of okay. The story is about this like demonic forest that's growing and overtaking this land that's run by like militaristic witches or something. That sounds like that should be cool, but this book structurally was so confounding to me. I could not really ever fully get into it. It never fully grabbed me, I should say. It never really pulled me in, nor the characters or the story, the plot, the conceit. None of it ever struck me. And I've seen Tony Daniel do some pretty solid artwork. Never really liked his writing as much, but this one didn't do anything for me with the story, and it didn't do anything for me with the art. When you kind of finally get to the end of the book, it has a nice kind of twist, but you see that coming from very far away, so Edenwood was just not really for me. Then we got Ice Cream Man here with issue number 37. This is a pretty solid issue of Ice Cream Man. It was a little weird at first, so it's about this dude. I guess he's like a cartoonist or something like that, and he's created this like world of these cute little like adorable furry animals, but they're having to go to war with like real consequences. So you got that story going on with a bunch of cute a bunch of cute, like, cartoon animals, like, killing each other. And then you got the story about the dude who created this work, who has recently passed away from suicide, and it's about his siblings, talking about him. There's some relationships going on, or some allegory, some kind of message that's being thrown through this book about how war is hell, but life is also like hell, and it's kind of like war. So it doesn't quite resonate with me as much as some other issues of Ice Cream Man has, but it was still super solid, still very quirky, still pretty freaking sad, and a great exploration on grief, melancholy, depression, war, hell, life, all kinds of stuff like that you get every single issue of Ice Cream Man. All right, we got Void Rivals. We got the Energon universe fully kicking now. We are on issue 5 of Void Rivals. We got the first issue of Transformers out right now, the second one on the way, and Duke and Cobra Commander are about to be starting. But what I like so much about this book, that even though this Energon connected universe in conjunction with Hasbro should be focused on Transformer stuff, G.I. Joe stuff, Robert Kirkman's doing his own thing here with Void Rivals and telling a very engaging story, building this world out, fleshing out those characters, and really taking the story into places where I didn't think it was going to go. I thought this book would be a little bit cliche after the first issue, that I knew where it was going to go, and it does kind of tread a familiar path, but at the same time, it's carving out its own unique voice that's separating it apart from Transformers. Even though it does have some Transformers connective tissue in this issue, it doesn't rely on that whatever, and this book will stand, the story and these characters and this artwork will stand on their own. So Void Rivals, I'm still completely digging it. Then we got Firepower here with issue number 28. I believe this is the penultimate issue of Firepower. There's only one more, and I told myself at the last issue, man, how are we going to wrap this up in 2 issues? Well, the way we're going to do that is with issue number 28. Number 28 is told in splash pages through the letter of one of the kids to their grandparents. And at first I was like, oh, this is kind of an obnoxious structure. We're covering a lot of ground. A lot of big moments are kind of like breezed by, but visually we still have them. The visuals in the book are still great, but you get like, I don't know, it's kind of like a very truncated explanation of what actually happens to lead to the big final finale. But I'm going to tell you something. Even though at first I was a little annoyed by the structure of this book, by the end of it, I thought that the art by Chris Samney and Matt Wilson, the colorist, was expertly done, and the letters were really well crafted, and the story was structured in such a way that when you get to the last page, it hits you. It hits you, and it hits you like a giant ball of firepower. I've been loving that book. All right, we got Spawn 346 here, $2.99, cardstock cover. Still one of the best deals in comics. We have been dealing with this war for the throne of hell. You got a lot of factions within hell trying to make a claim for the throne. You got heaven trying to make a claim. You got Green World involved in all of it. And of course you got Spawn and the Scorched and his people there as well. This story has been kind of meandering around for a little bit. This issue doesn't really help that out at all. I know that we're just kind of probably killing time until issue 350, where we can have another big gear shift or a big culmination of something here, but the last page of this book was cool. And that's something that Spawn does, is it is able to kind of just tread ground, not make too much movement and progression in the story, but then on that last page, give you a little bit of nugget of something that wants you to come back. And when it's only $3, I mean, in this economy, come on. Speaking of $3 in a cardstock cover, we got Gunslinger Spawn here with issue number 25. I do believe this is the first and only issue of Gunslinger Spawn not penciled by Brett Booth. That is sad. However, Dexter Soy is on the artwork here, and I am such a fan of Dexter Soy's work. I think it's perfect for a Spawn book. I would like to see more on the Spawn prop, like the main Spawn title. I would love to see what he does with some of those landscapes, some of the cityscapes, I should say, and the cape, and just some really great moments, but it works for Gunslinger as well. The story is just Gunslinger going around getting revenge on the people that were responsible for killing his sister, so there's not much to it there, more of the same. However, the artwork absolutely popped, and I love it. Gunslinger Spawn out. Well, that's a cool damn Panosian cover, too. By the way, I Hate Fairyland issue number 10 does exactly what I Hate Fairyland's been doing. It's crude, it's silly, it's irreverent, and it's funny, and it's absolutely balls to the wall. just so much fun. I Hate Fairyland. What's crazy is I never even finished the first volume. I read it for like 15 to 20 issues and dropped out of it. Then I picked right back up in volume 2. Didn't feel like I've missed anything, even though I didn't know how that story ended. This book does a great job of cluing you in, of bringing you in, and just having this nice sense of cheesy, potty humor, middle school type fun, and I love it so much. I Hate Fairyland. If you're not into it yet, maybe pick up a trade. Check it out. Let's jump over to DC. We got Alan Scott, Green Lantern, issue number 1. This is written by Tim Sheridan with Cian Tormey on the artwork, and the artwork's pretty solid. It's clean, it's good, it's decent. This is a story focused mostly on the Golden Age, a little bit of Alan Scott's personal life that we don't ever really got to see flesh out so much. There's this idea of this like crimson light or something. It might be tied into like the first Red Lantern or something. There was interesting things going on in this book. I like the characterization of Alan Scott. I liked seeing him in the 30s, in the 40s, kind of focus and struggle with his identity and try to get away from that, and how he doesn't want to be a part of the Justice Society, and how he feels guilty about the life that he's leading and stuff because he's a gay man, right? Back in the 30s and 40s where that was a very, very dangerous thing. And it's playing around with that, but that's not the sole focus of the book, but I really do like that characterization. I think that since they've done the coming out of Alan Scott, it's one of the better portrayals of his journey at that time. I like these Golden Age books. They're kind of like filling in some gaps. They're kind of giving us some more newer information since the dawn of the new Golden Age, which has been spearheaded by Jeff Johns, but I liked it. It does get a little bogged down and overly verbose at times, but for the most part, I enjoyed this book, and I am excited to see what happens in the future. Then we got Wonder Woman here, issue number 2 of Tom King's Wonder Woman. First of all, we got Daniel Samperi on the artwork. Just like in the first issue, the artwork is absolutely stunning and amazing. Unlike the first issue, though, I liked this one. I didn't really like the first issue. Thought it was very overly verbose, way too explainy, way less showy. This one still has some of those Tom King-isms where it does tell as more than it shows, but at the same time, structurally, I think this worked a lot better than issue number 1. Basically, what's happened is that the Amazons are being banned from America and maybe even other countries in the world right now because there was a slaughter at a pool hall or something that an Amazon's responsible for. There's probably a bigger, deeper threat, but structurally, from page to page, from beginning to end, I was more engaged in this one, and the dialogue didn't annoy me quite as much, so I actually liked this, and I thought that some of my issues with the verbosity of this book were ironed out a little bit in issue number 2. We shall see what happens on issue number 3, but for right now, I kind of like that book. Then we got Amazon's Attack issue number 1. This is written by Josie Campbell. I think she's a solid writer. Really love her as an artist, too. She did work with Kelly Thompson on the Jim and the Holograms book back in the day that I absolutely love. She's been doing recent work on Turtles, and now she's doing Amazon Attacks. This is going to be a mini-series that's tied into the events of Wonder Woman. So if you're wanting to read both, read Wonder Woman number 2 before you read this, because there's a backup story in Wonder Woman number 2 that leads directly into this. But this is Nubia trying to go to America to broker a peace to try to talk this out. But of course, that ain't gonna happen because conflict is gonna reign. It was an okay book. I liked the writing. It wasn't overly verbose. It had a nice pace to it. The art was just okay, though. The art's way better in the Wonder Woman proper book, but I like the flow and the pace a little bit better here in the Amazon's Attack, though not as complex of a story structure as Wonder Woman. Then we got Penguin, issue number 3. This is also written by Tom King. First issue, I didn't really like. Second issue, I loved. So much it made the pick of the week. I liked issue number 3. Now, not as much as issue number 2. Structurally, it's okay. It's a little bit obvious where this is going pretty much from the cover and the first page on. You know where we're going. It doesn't have one of those big oomph moments like number 2 did. However, it did have this nice methodical pace of menace that I thought really worked for this book, and it's something that Tom King is playing with in the pages here to make Penguin, to make Oswald, a very threatening menace. I almost said a threatening threat. Yeah, that's right. Best comic book reviewer on YouTube, y'all say? Ha ha! is a very threatening threat, a menacing menace. Anyway, the Penguin number 3 I liked, so there you go. Then we got the Flash issue number 2. I thought the Flash issue number 1 by Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato Jr. had some really interesting concepts, though they're very crazy and very out there and hard to fully comprehend. I thought the artwork was decent. In this one, the artwork takes a little bit of a step back at times, but layout and composition-wise, it kind of elevated itself a little bit, but the line work just kind of dropped down a little bit, so that was a weird kind of switcheroo right there. But I did like issue number 2. I probably was able to get into this a little bit better than issue number 1, but there are some crazy, mind-boggling concepts in here that I am completely lost on. Completely lost on. Now, I like a challenging book, and I've always wanted Grant Morrison to do that 5 to 7 year run of Flash that they've always wanted to do. This is probably the closest thing we're going to get to that for now, so I'm definitely going to have the patience to see how this plays out, at least for now. But 2 issues in, it's solid. It's not great, but I do love those challenging, complex concepts that Cy Spurrier is playing with there. Then we got Detective Comics here with issue 1075. We are now in Act 2 of this amazing, tragic, romantic, gothic opera that Ram V is crafting for Batman. So in this part, we're kind of dealing with tragedy. Batman's like basically reliving his life. He's reliving all the terrible stuff that's happened to him. He's battling with the demon Barbados inside in a way, and all these exterior forces that have put Batman in this situation are also closing in on him. The art's by Francisco Francavilla, a little shaky on the line work at times, but the color choices are very bold and they pop and they work for me, and I love Francisco Francavilla's work because of those color choices. Got a backup story by Dan Waters that's absolutely top-notch, but there's a lot of these kind of stories where Batman's been infected by like a fear toxin or a demonic entity or something like that, and he has to kind of replay the greatest hits of the tragedies of his life. But this does it in a very lyrical, poetic, and masterful way. I absolutely love what Ram V's doing in tech, which is what they call it in the biz. Then we got Batman, Catwoman, the Gotham War Red Hood, issue number 2. I was confused by issue number 1 because it didn't feel very super plugged into the events of the Gotham War. This one does, but mostly towards the end. It's got this weird kind of shift where all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, this happened and now we're here, and it just kind of got muddied and cluttered up for me. I didn't really like this, but if you're a hardcore Red Hood fan, check it out. But it's not anything that seems like it's super essential for the Gotham War, but definitely setting up stuff for what Matthew Rosenberg, the writer, has been doing, I guess, in Joker. I kind of dropped out of that one, so it was all right, but if you're reading the Batman, Catwoman, Gotham War, and you're already annoyed at having to pick up those 2 one-shots and the Catwoman book, you can just skip this Red Hood one. It doesn't really do much for you. Then we got the Action Comics 1058. This was a pretty solid issue of Action Comics. Philip Kennedy Johnson doing what he's been doing on this title, which is ramp up that action. Now, I do think his initial story, the War World Saga, went on a little bit too long. It just kind of overstretched itself. Here in the new bit, since the dawn of DC, the structure has gotten a little bit tighter. Everything's been moving a little bit quicker with the pacing and with the action, and I appreciate the book for that. There's a lot of groundwork being developed here, a lot of mystery being built up, and I'm really appreciating the artwork as well, kind of capturing this big, bombastic, and explosive energy that Superman deserves. The backup stories are just okay in this one. To be honest with you, I don't even know if I'm going to keep reading the backup stories in this one, because the main story I like, but the backup stories have always just been kind of okay. Then we got Green Arrow issue number 5. This is the 5th issue of a 12-issue series written by Josh Williamson, and this one's got artwork by not just the normal artist, who is Sean Ikoksky, I probably said that wrong, but also Phil Hester and Andy Parks. Now, Phil Hester and Andy Parks did the art in the Green Arrow run when he came back from the dead. Parallax brought him back. That was the Kevin Smith written stuff, and then the Brad Meltzer written stuff. That Brad Meltzer story, by the way, is absolutely amazing. What's it called? Archer's Quest? Or something like that. If you've never read that, check that out. But this kind of gives me some of those same vibes and tones that Brad Meltzer brought in, where it's about family, it's about the legacy, it's about the history of Green Arrow. Since the end of Dark Crisis, Green Arrow has been flung across space and time. We're getting a clearer vision of what the threat is, of who's responsible, but we're not having all of those questions answered yet. But the way that they're using Phil Hester and Andy Parks as artists in here, I thought was pretty clever. We've seen it before, but I like it. And also, special special attention to the lettering here in Green Arrow. Really solid stuff, focusing in on the legacy of Oliver Queen. Then we got the Unstoppable Doom Patrol issue number 7. Temporarily unstoppable because this is the final issue for now, because this has not just a satisfying conclusion to what's been a really, really freaking worthy follow-up to the works of people like Gerard Way, Rachel Pollack, and Grant Morrison, but it also sets up more of this iteration of Doom Patrol, so it wraps everything up, but also leaves some stuff dangling in such an exciting way that I am just oozing, shivering even, with anticipation for this book to come back. Unstoppable Doom Patrol has been amazing. I liked it more in the first half of it, where it was more self-contained, focused on these little stories, but it does feel kind of like a rush to this big climactic finale. And I would have liked it if this would have just been billed as an ongoing series, and Dennis Culver, the writer, could have taken more time to kind of lay that groundwork and let the pace actually go a little bit better. However, I've really loved this book because tonally and cosmetically even, it's very much in line with what Morrison, Pollack, and Way did. And to me, that's like the trifecta of Doom Patrol right there. All right, let's jump over to Marvel. And from Marvel, we have a new Captain Marvel issue number 1 because there's a new Marvels movie coming out in just a couple of weeks. So you got to have a new number 1, or at least that's what Marvel thinks you have to do. Now, every time I try to get into a Captain Marvel book, it's interesting at first, and then I just kind of lose that interest. It wanes, right? I was liking what Kelly Thompson was doing, then I fell out of it. I was liking what Kelly Sue DeConnick was doing, but then I fell out of it. So let's see if this book repeats the pattern. I will say this. Captain Marvel issue number 1, this one written by Alyssa Wong with artwork by Jan Balzaldua. I liked it. I thought it was fine. It introduces a new villain, introduces a new sidekicky type character. It's playing a lot with traditional Captain Marvel lore, including the Negabands and how they make people switch places and how this is sort of now connected to Carol Danvers. Now, there is a little bit of annoyance there because in the Marvels movie, it seems like that's what they're doing, where they're going to be switching places. Her, Photon, Spectrum, Captain Marvel, whatever they want to call her, Miss Marvel, and then Carol, right? So it seems like they're just trying to do something familiar to what the upcoming movie's going to be, but at the same time, it's got this nice sense of fun, it's got this great energy across it, and it's got a good pace, and honestly, I really did like it. Now, I will say this as well. I did like Alyssa Wong's first issue of Deadpool, and then quickly fell out of that, but right now, I thought this was a really solid start to a new run for Carol Danvers, and I do like the new costume. I like that jacket. It looks better on her than it does, like, it's like a Power Girl, Supergirl kind of doing that thing now. Looks better on Carol for me. It seems to fit that character a little bit more, but I liked it. Captain Marvel number 1, I'm a little sold on it right now. Then we got Marvel Zombies, Black, White, and Blood, issue number 1. It's an anthology, black and white short stories with a little touch of red in it, centered around Marvel Zombies. That's what this is. First story is written by Garth Ennis. I was excited for that one, but it didn't really do too much for me. It's got some really gnarly bits with the artwork that I liked. The second story had some cool artwork as well, but it didn't really do much for me either. It was a little bit predictable, but it's got some cool art. And then the last story, oh, the Moon Knight. So Moon Knight story was, once again, cool art, but just didn't really do much for me. So if you're a hardcore Marvel Zombies fan, you want to sink your teeth into this, oh, I guess that pun was intended too. Was it? Anyway, if you want to take a bite out of something for Halloween, I'd recommend that Dracula book and not Marvel Zombies. Rob, you really got to stop this. All right, Captain America issue number 2, the second issue of J. Michael Straczynski's run on Captain America, and I'm just not digging it. I want this book to be adventurous. I want this book to be filled with action. I want this book to be not just telling us, yo, Nazis are bad. Yeah, no shit, Nazis are bad. We knew that back then. We know that now. Captain America knows it. Let's see him kick some Nazi ass. Let's actually see something. Let's see some interesting story develop. We're 2 issues into this run, and I think its identity is just going to be sentimentality and telling you that Nazis are bad. And yeah, that seems fine, but it's kind of obnoxious because this is a chance for you to relaunch a Captain America book and have it be what a Captain America book should be. You know, like a kind of an adventure and kind of about like America and this kind of thing, but not just like what's on the news or just not even like just, I don't know. It's just, it's not working for me. And to be honest, I was kind of worried about that because J. Michael Straczynski, he's got some great work, Midnight Nation with Gary Frank in particular, but this feels more like his Superman run. I mean, at least Captain America's not like trying to walk across the country to like reconnect with the people or anything like that, but I feel like we're like just a couple issues away, y'all. I feel like we're just a couple issues away. Artwork's fine, but Jesus Saez doesn't get anything exciting to do in the book because the book is just a bunch of people talking, telling you Nazis are bad. No shit. Anyway, Amazing Spider-Man here is with issue number 36. Zeb Wells, Ed McGuinness. Artwork is fine, very clean. I like it. This is a, what's his name? Rec Rap? This freaking dude, this Rec Rap dude that comes from what was it, a dark web story, which I did not like, so we're playing around with that a little bit, and this was really obnoxious and boring to me. There are a couple moments in here that are obviously leading into the gang war event that were a little bit more exciting, but the rest of the story, I was like, oh, you're taking one of my least favorite bits from one of my least favorite parts of Zeb Wells' run, and you're playing with it. That's fine. So if you like whatever that dude's name is, you might like that one, but I found it to be rather obnoxious. Then we got Marvel Unleashed issue number 3. This book is way better than it deserves to be. There are some things going on with the artwork here. A couple pages where the coloring or the printing of it just kind of looks a little bit muddy, so it doesn't feel as clean artistically as it does the previous 2 issues. But Kyle Starks is actually making me read a book about a bunch of, like, animals from the Marvel Universe, like Falcon's bird, Red Wing, like this dog, this D-Dog, that's just wearing one of D-Man's, like, Demolition D-Man's old Demolition. Demolition is here. Anyway, Marvel Unleashed is actually really good. It's cute and it's filled with charm and I like it, but there's some issues with the art, the coloring, or the printing, something here. It's kind of throwing me off. Predator vs. Wolverine issue number 2. It was a very stacked week. I was at Scarefest this weekend. I didn't have any time to read any books early. My Lunar order was shipped very late, the latest it's ever been shipped. So I had to read everything today, which is why this video is later than usual. But I had to read everything today, and I haven't really had to do that for a while. And so I knew that it was going to be a long night, and I almost just like put this aside because I didn't really like the first issue, and maybe I should have, because it was exactly what I thought it would be. I mean, it's Predator versus Wolverine, and I like the idea that this was established in the first issue, that Wolverine's been fighting Predators for like the last 100-something years, right? That's cool, and you got a lot of artistic changes here, and this is better than issue number 1 because you don't have all the Greg Land artwork, but it didn't really do anything really for me. Now, at least it's not an $8 issue like the last one, but it is $6, and it feels like it's not worth $6, to be honest with you. But I'm going to tell you what, no matter what I say about this book, it's going to sell well, and they're going to keep doing them. So what message are we sending Marvel? I don't know. From Boom Studios, we have Rare Flavors, issue number 2. I know, I love that Dracula book so much. It beat out an Ice Cream Man and a Rom V indie book for Pick of the Week. But this was amazing, and it also gets the smell of the week. It's got this like faint vanilla-y sweetness to the smell that I really like. But the story is awesome. I'm going to slightly spoil a twist from issue number 1 because it's been over a month now, but this is about a dude who is actually a sort of demonic Indian mythological creature, right? And he is now living on Earth, and he's like runs this like tea stand or this like deli or this cafe, something like that, right? And Anthony Bourdain dies, and he winds up getting this documentarian filmmaker who's kind of given up on his dream and given up on himself. He's dealing with some tragedy. He's never really picked himself back up from that. And this dude is taking him along to film a documentary about this dude's love of food, people, and culture. The dude's like a demon. He eats people. So he likes food, he likes culture, and he likes seasoning. And it almost feels like he's taking this dude and trying to get him to believe in himself again so that the taste is that much sweeter. So that's the hook from the end of issue number 1 that makes this book way more interesting than the premise might make it sound. Also, Rom V just doing amazing things subtextually here and playing around with thematic material. Like each issue of this run so far has included a recipe, and the recipe is related to the theme of the book. And this one is about these chilies, right? And this doll, I think, that's made, or is it dal? D-A-L, like the Indian dish made with these chilies, and it's talking about spice and how we need spice. We need to go out into the desert. We need to burn. We need to experience the pain to understand the more nuanced and flavorful bits underneath that burn, right? And I absolutely love that. The use of language, and Felipe Andrade's artwork is just masterful. But don't be fooled. This book is not just about recipes. It's not just about finding yourself. It's also about this demon who eats people. So there you go. Then we got Slow Burn here with issue number 1, a new one from Boom. This is written by Ollie Masters. He did this book back in the day called Killer Groove that I really liked. So this is good, solid, interesting crime fiction. It's basically about this woman who, her and her, it seems like boyfriend at the time, they wind up ripping off somebody in her family, and it goes into a different way than they think it's going to go. There's a lot of pieces here, a lot of characters, and it feels like a slow burn, but it absolutely captured my imagination, and I really liked it. I do like good crime fiction that likes to play with non-linear storytelling and playing around with mystery and stuff like that, and that's what's going on in the pages of Slow Burn, so I'm liking it so far. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World is here with issue number 10, and man, I love this book so much. So at the very first arc, right, and this is the end of the second arc, I believe, but the first arc, basically what happens is it's the end of the world. This woman and this dude meet, they fall in love. In the second arc, they have built a community together. There's a lot of representation of polyamorous lifestyles and stuff like that. I really like that. I think it's super interesting. But then you start seeing their paradise start breaking down, right? So you're seeing the relationship break down and the way that it's shown in the story. And it's like a metaphor for what's going on in a relationship when it sours, right? It is powerful. It is on the nose. It is 100% correct. And it really is doing a great job. Jason Aaron and company are doing a great job taking these characters and showing externally what's going on internally and between them with their relationship. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World is a great book, and I am loving it. Issue number 10 kicked it up into gear again. So we got our first official new book from Distillery. So far, we've had Devil's Cut. Devil's Cut was a bunch of short stories leading into the big series that are coming. This is the first one. It's Gone, written and illustrated by Jock, and it's an okay book. The artwork is fine. If you like Jock's artwork, you're going to like this book. It's spacious. It has a nice flow to it. The story is decent, and it's all right. It's a little bit cliche at times. The basic premise is this. This young lady who's trying to be a scavenger in this world where the disparity between the rich and the poor is like even greater than like normal, right? And there's this big giant spaceship leaving. She's going in there with a group of people to steal a bunch of food and stuff like that, but then the ship takes off, plans go awry, she gets stuck on this ship as a fugitive, and it's interesting, it's cool, we'll see where it goes. It's a big, thick book. It is $9. It took a minute to read, but it didn't feel like it was bogged down or anything, but I did like the artwork. I liked the presentation. I liked the format. So if you're interested, I think you might want to give this one a shot. Cool sci-fi from Jock. All right, then we got Drive Like Hell, issue number 1 from Dark Horse Comics. This is written by Rich Douek with artwork by Alex Cormack. That's right, the team behind such amazing books like Road of Bones, Sea of Sorrows, and Breath of Shadows is back again with Drive Like Hell. It's about a dude, here we go. It's a dude who rips off a car from a demon. So it's a crazy fast car. He's in like a heist gone awry. He's now got his dead girlfriend talking to him in the car. This car possessed by like hell or something. And he's running from this devil who's trying to get his car back. It's high octane. You feel the vibration in this book. Alex Cormack does a great job of handling the horrific and dark elements as well as that high octane energy necessary for such an action-packed, car-centric book like this. And Rich Douek, bruh, man, I love the way you think. You're gnarly. I like this book. Drive Like Hell. If you like their previous collaborations, no reason you're not going to like that book. Giant Robot Hellboy, issue number 1. His name was Giant Robot Hellboy. I really like this book. Now, there's been a lot of Hellboy books all the time, right? And for the most part, they're just kind of okay. Ever since Mike Mignola kind of officially ended Hellboy with Hellboy in Hell, we've had all these Hellboy and the BPRDs and these other little one-shots, these other little miniseries, and they're all right, and they're decent, but for the most part, they're just kind of disposable and forgettable. This one feels a little bit more fun, a little bit more plugged in. Not plugged into the lore or the mythology or the narrative of the whole story, but just a little bit more in the vein of what these books felt like to me in the 90s and the early 2000s. One of the reasons why is because Duncan Fegredo is back on the artwork. He worked on a lot of Hellboy, and the art works, the flow works, Mignola's story works. Here's the premise. These people kidnap Hellboy, attach him to a machine that puts his consciousness into a giant mech of Hellboy, who they're trying to use as a distraction while they're sending somebody else in to do something else. It is hilarious, it is fun, and it is Hellboy, albeit a giant robot Hellboy. Great cover, too, from Mike Mignola right there. From IDW, we have Dark Spaces Dungeon, issue number 1. There's a few of these Dark Spaces book right now. The first one was it Wildfire? Was that what it's called? The one with Hayden Sherman and Scott Snyder. Well, they're back at it again. And what I love about this is that Hayden Sherman, changing up their style yet again, does not look like any other work I've seen from Hayden Sherman. The basic story is that this dude is running, jogging one day, trips over this thing, finds a dungeon, right, just hidden down there, that's used to torture people. There is this police officer or detective who was a former victim of this person, never found him, never found any of these other dungeons. Now that they found the dungeon, he's back on the case, back on that trail. Art is absolutely amazing, story's good, and Scott Snyder sometimes is a bit exposition-y. He is a bit overly verbose, but in this one, a lot of that gets ironed out. Great layouts and panel design from Hayden Sherman. I liked it. I liked it a lot. A lot of the other Dark Spaces book, I liked Wildfire. Didn't really get into, was it Good Deeds that much? Hollywood Special doesn't do anything for me. But Dungeon, really liked the first issue of that one. Then we got Plot Holes, issue number 3 from Sean Gordon Murphy and Massive Publishing, which is Whatnot. A great variant cover right there by Jim Mahfood. Love me some Jim Mahfood. And yeah, it's a great cover, but that Dracula cover really got me going. But this is a fun book. Plot Holes is about these fictional characters that get pulled out of books, that go into other books and save them. They have to edit characters and ideas out of books to save the books from collapsing. There's a lot of explaining in this issue about what's actually going on, what is the actual inherent nature of this mystery, of this villain, of these characters. You get a lot more of that elaborated on, and it's really cool, and it makes that cover even more super dope after you read it, so I'm liking it. Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer, issue number 2. This is Harriet Tubman, not just rescuing people on the Underground Railroad from slavery, but also from vampires and demons. And it reads exactly how you think that's going to go. It's not stretching itself too far. It's not trying to do anything exceptional, except for just have that concept and have a little bit of fun with it. It's a very quick, easy, breezy read. The artwork's okay. The lettering is kind of atrocious, to be honest with you. A better letterer could really elevate this up a little bit more. It doesn't have anything deep to it yet, but we'll see where it goes. But right now, it's just having fun with the concept of Harriet Tubman killing vampires. I'm cool for that. Then we got Darkwing Duck's Negaduck, issue number 2. I love Darkwing Duck. I love this character in particular. This is like my favorite Darkwing Duck villain. And in this one, he's trying to get help from, what's her name? The magic lady. Morgana. That's right, Morgana. He's trying to fool Morgana into thinking that he is Darkwing Duck to get the secret of this thing so we can go and get the gauntlet of Midas to turn things into gold. And then all the other villains find out what he's doing, and it just becomes this like uproarious adventure, very appropriate for a Darkwing Duck comic. Negaduck getting the spotlight, and I'm all here for it. Then we got the Ribbon Queen here with issue number 4. This was an okay issue. Each issue of Ribbon Queen, this is written by Garth Ennis with artwork by Jason Burrows. It's from AWA. I love the homage right there to Friday the 13th. By the way, just got me a Friday the 13th VHS station, Mike the Voice. Thanks for the hookup, my man. Anybody's got VHS you don't want, especially if they're horror, you can send them my way. Anyway, Ribbon Queen. Each issue's been kind of boring until it gets to the end where something super gnarly happens, and it's kept my interest going. This one explains a whole lot about what's actually going on, has more gnarliness to it, and actually doesn't dull me out as much as the previous issues, so I liked this issue. Very excited to see how it's going to conclude. Conan the Barbarian, issue number 4. From Titan. This is written by Jim Zub, I believe. Yeah, Grim Jim Zub, and art by Rob De La Torre. Yo, this book slaps. This book just does it. This book understands what Conan readers want. We want something that looks like John Buscema. We want something that's going to read like Savage Tales of Conan. That is exactly what this is. It's dark. It's horrific. It's filled with barbaric violence. It is absolutely fun and astounding to me that we can still make this book today, because every other time they've been trying to do Conan, some things work, some things don't, but no, this frickin' works. These are people who care about this property. These are creators who understand what Conan represents, and the fans of this world of Samaria, and they nail it every single time. I love the fuck out of that book. It's really good. Excuse my language. Anyway, The Prism is here with issue number 1. This is a new one from Ablaze by Mateo de Longus. Interesting concepts, solid artwork, kind of a confusing story. I guess it's like, it's doing this interesting thing, by the way, where it's trying not to use, like, what are they called? Onomatopoeias? What boom. Like, what are those called? They say it right here. Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. I don't use that word enough. So it's not using those, but it's using, like, interesting things to convey sound in this book. And it's cool, but I don't know what's going on. There's, like, this smoke rising on the water. That's a reference to a song, right? You know, that's everybody's first song they learn on guitar is Smoke on the Water. Then maybe Come As You Are. Anyway, so this is The Prism. What is it about? I don't know. They're using music to stop this, like, smoke on the water that's rising and it's ending the world. So they got this dude playing a guitar, dropping from space. Man, I'm so freaking lost in this book. So confused. So confused. Have no idea. All right. Collection-wise. Got a hardcover collection out this week I want to show off. If you're interested, you're not going to have long to get it. But this is the complete hardcover edition of Faust, with amazing artwork by Tim Vigil. I have like the first 12 issues of Faust. Those last few issues are very expensive, very rare, hard to get. This is a $90 hardcover that was crowdfunded. It was on Kickstarter, and it was successfully funded, like massively successfully funded, and it is now in comic shops from BlackBox Comics. It's probably not going to last long, but if you are interested in Faust, which, what is Faust? It is a brutally violent, incredibly gory, incredibly subversive, transgressive, nasty work that I absolutely adore. The boldness of it and some really cool artwork that's very 80s indie, underground, alternative type stuff. And I've never been able to complete the story because I can't find those last like 3 or 4 issues. It's really hard to get them. And this has it all. And this is a $90 hardcover, but this is cheaper than trying to piece that run together. Now, is it going to stop me from trying to piece that run together? No. I would show you some of the art, but that would be pretty much impossible. There's definitely something on every page here that's going to offend somebody watching this video. I don't want to be that guy, but Faust is gnarly. A man seduced by power plunges into an underground urban hell dominated by madness and the mystical. Haunted by tortured love, he rages through primal hallucinations in a blood-drenched nightmare of attraction and repulsion, sex and death, revenge and reclamation. David Quinn, Tim Vigil, Faust is back in print, baby. Probably not for long. Smells really good, too. All right, and to recap. Prism, super confused. Didn't know what the hell was going on. Conan the Barbarian, love this book. Ribbon Queen, the best issue yet. Kept me interested so far. Nega Duck, it's silly, it's fun, it's goofy. It's exactly what it needs to be. Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer, need a better letterer. That would really help that out. Plot holes is super fun, explainy in this issue, but necessarily explainy. And we got a cool Jim Mahfood variant there. Dark Spaces Dungeon, Scott Snyder kind of ironing out some of his exposition verbosity, as well as Hayden Sherman continuing to develop their style and do something different. Giant Robot Hellboy. It's about a giant robot Hellboy, and it's very good. Drive Like Hell, insane, high-octane, satanic power from Alex and Rich. Gone, an interesting sci-fi book from Jock that was pretty decent. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, ending Arc 2 in magnificent fashion. Slow burn was kind of a slow burn, but I like it. If you're into crime fiction that likes to play with non-linear storytelling, check that out. Rare Flavors gets the smell of the week. It was absolutely fantastic. Wolverine, or Predator versus Wolverine, no matter what I say about this book, y'all are going to buy it anyway. So there you go. Marvel Unleashed is way better than it deserves to be. The Amazing Spider-Man really annoyed the hell out of me this week. Captain America really annoyed the hell out of me this week. Marvel Zombies Black, White, and Blood was just kind of okay. Had some decent artwork though. Captain Marvel #1, pretty solid start to the new run. Doom Patrol, solid finish and a really great setup for what's to come. Green Arrow, playing with that legacy of Arrow of Oliver, and I'm all here for it. Action Comics keeps doing what Action Comics does, which is deliver the action and some kind of boring and dull backup stories. Batman, Catwoman, Gotham War, Red Hood, unessential. I would just skip it. Detective Comics, beautiful, tragic, gothic romance. When I say romance, I don't mean like people loving. I mean like, never mind. That's the wrong word to use. Tragic, operatic. Anyway, Flash #2, crazy concepts, hard to grasp, but I'm here for that challenge. Penguin #3, not as good as issue #2, but better than issue #1. Amazon's Attack was a pretty decent tie-in to Wonder Woman. Issue #2 of Tom King's Wonder Woman, I liked structurally so much more than issue #1. It really elevated that up for me. Alan Scott Green Lantern, I dug it. I thought it was cool. Then we got I Hate Fairyland, crude, rude, irreverent fun. Gunslinger Spawn and Spawn $2.99 cardstock cover. That Dexter Soy artwork, though, was fantastic. Firepower. Really good. I liked it. Annoying at first, but then it ironed itself out. Void Rivals, finding its own identity in the mess that is Transformers and G.I. Joe. Ice Cream Man doing what Ice Cream Man does, which is be weird, quirky, and kind of make you sad. But it's awesome and innovative. Edenwood just did not do anything for me, but pick of the week, Universal Monsters, Dracula. James and Martin, they get it. They understand what they're doing. Just look at that, y'all. Just look at that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And so horrific. Anyway, that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I'm digging. That's what I'm not. What are you reading? What are you digging? What are you thinking? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom!